Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC video. I'm your host, Jose Rocks, and today we're going to be getting into another ranking. And I wanted to, since we're about halfway through the second season, a little bit more than half of Regulation F, and I wanted to go ahead and rank the Pokemon as they are of today. So this is subject to change because we do have another, the rest of this month, as well as March and April for this format. So my opinion may change over those, the course of that time. But for now, we're going to rank them as they are today. So we have the S tier, which is going to be what you must have answers for, pretty much the busted mons. Next, we have the A tier, which is going to be, they're pretty much good on every team. They're winners. Most of the teams that you see winning the regional championships and tournaments are going to have a good amount of these Pokemon that are in this tier on them, right? Next, we have the B tier, which it plays its role well. It's reliable. This is pretty much Pokemon that aren't like good on every single team, but if you have them on your team, they're pretty reliable. They're gonna do what they need to do, and they're not really gonna hold your team back. The C tier is gonna be Pokemon that fit on one type of team, niche. Pretty much, there you only see them on one archetype type of team. If they're ended up on any other team, they most likely wouldn't work on that team, right? Next, we have the D tier. This is going to be the decent, but something does its job better. These are Pokemon that are not bad Pokemon, but there's something in one of the upper tiers that just does their job a lot better. And it's pretty like when you're trying to role compress on your team, you don't want to double up with Pokemon that fill the same role, right? So then they fall into the D tier. F tier is going to be if you don't want to win, if you want to win, don't use these. These are pretty much the garbage mons, the ones that I think that just you can use them for like means, but you're gonna struggle a lot to use these Pokemon because they don't have any traits that make them good. And of course the banned tier, but I don't think we have any banned tier mons on this list. So we'll start from the top. We'll start with Venusaur. So Venusaur, I actually built a team around it, and I'm gonna be showcasing it soon. It's actually been impressing me lately. I think it's gonna be a B tier for me. I don't. Is it a C tier? I feel like it really only fits on some teams. You really wouldn't use it anywhere else. I'm going to say for the sake of this list, we're going to say C tier right now. I do think that it could rise into a B tier. Well, actually, let's put B tier. I want to say that Venusaur, the role that it plays is a chlorophyll sweeper that has sleep powder and, very powerful like poison type attacks, grass type attacks. And it also gets like weather ball that you can use in the sun, which is really good in earth power. So it plays its role well as being like a sun sweeper and also a sun disruptor that where it's just the sleep powder is just very annoying for your opponent, right? So I think it's a B tier. It's actually a lot better than I thought it was when you actually play with it. And I do think that once Groudon and Koraidon are in the format, like Venusaur plus like Walking Wake and Incinerar, like that's just gonna be like a really good core of mons. Whether you choose to go Groudon or Koraidon, but you're gonna have a combination of Venusaur. Maybe Torkoal, maybe not Torkoal, but Venusaur, Incinerar, and Walking Wake is your Fire Water Grass core alongside Koraidon and Groudon, right? I think it's going to be really cool. Next, we have Blastoise. Blastoise is going to be D tier for me. Blastoise, what it wants to do is just be a water sweeper. If you really want to use a powerful water type, just use Urshifu. Even Gyarados is a bit better than a water type than Blastoise. You also have Dondozo if you just want a bulky water type. It's just so many water types that are good in the format, even Water Ogerpon, Walking Wake. There's so many good water types that Blastoise just really doesn't have a place right now. Raichu does have a little bit of a niche. It fits on teams that really need an answer into Raging Bolt. If Iron Hands ever rises back up to be like pretty dominant in the format, then Raichu would be even better. But being able to, with Fairy Terror, be able to 100% wall the Raging Bolt unless they have Snarl is like a really cool niche of Raichu that it can do. Clefairy, I'm gonna put Clefairy up in the B tier. It plays its role well as being a redirection and allowing you to set up things like Gholdengo or like a Roaring Moon with Dragon Dance. Just Pokemon that want to set up and sweep and need a little bit of extra bulk. Clefairy is really good for that, right? Ninetales, it's gonna be C tier for me. It only fits on Sun teams. Right now, it's one of the only Sunsetters with Torkoal. If you want to play Sun, just use Torkoal or just use like Tornadus or Whimsicott, right? I really don't think you should be using Ninetales, but if you is gonna use it, it is gonna be only fitting on those Sun teams. Alolan Ninetales, also, we put it in B tier. It's a snow setter, the best snow setter, and it does get access to, you know, Auroraville, which can set up light screen and reflect, which is pretty cool, and it enables like ice types, Bascaliber, things like that. Plus you also have like Encore disable shenanigans with it. Blizzard spam for freezes. It's a pretty good Pokemon. It plays its role well as just being like a weather setter that's also just not just bad, right? Arcanine. Arcanine right now is going to be D tier for me. D tier because Incinerar's in the format, just use Incinerar. If you do want to use Arcanine, Suing Arcanine in my opinion is a lot better. I still think it's a B tier mon. It's going to play its role well as being an intimidator, as well as putting out offense. Rock coverage is really good in the format. If you think about like Fluttermane's weak, not weak to you, but it's physical defense. It can't take hits from you. Chien-Pao is weak to you. Ogerpon is weak to you. Just a lot of Pokemon that are good right now just can't take it. Gouging Fire, another Pokemon that it does really well into. So it's really good in my opinion. Also, if you switch it in after and Intimidate, it's already going off on a Incinerar. Now you threaten it with rock type attacks, right? So it's pretty good. Slowbro, it's gonna be a D tier for me. It's a Trick Room, bulky Trick Room setter with a water typing. It's a good Pokemon, but it's just so many better Trick Room setters that are Psychic type. Cresselia, Porygon, not Psychic type, but it's a better Trick Room setter. And also Farigiraf, which is like the best Trick Room setter right now, right? So it's not really a niche for this Pokemon. Muck, I'm gonna put this in the S tier. The reason I put this in the S tier, and I'm gonna go ahead and put Smeargle up here with it. Where is Smeargle? Smeargle's here. So we'll skip ahead to Smeargle. These two are S tier, right? And the reason these two are S tier is because together they can single-handedly just wipe out your team with the little gimmick strategy that it has. And you have, and I put it in S tier because the description is must have answers for, it's busted. This strategy, why it's annoying and these Pokemon are not really good. Smeargle may be like a B tier by itself, but Muck is really not a good Pokemon by itself. But together, they form a duo that's kind of similar to Chansey Shuckle, and you have to have an answer for this on your team, or else you just automatically lose, right? And you don't want to just be losing to something gimmicky like this. Like if you go to a regional, you might have a couple players that bring this core with like something like Flamingo or something like that. I'll go ahead and put, is Flamingo on this list? I don't think that it's on this list. This list is like a list of relevant mons. I don't think it added Flamingo on here though. If we see it later, we'll add it up there with them because the strategy works also with Flamingo, and you're able to pretty much copy the stats of the Muck and just become unhittable with the invasion boost. So I'm putting it in S tier because you gotta have answers for this. Now these Pokemon are not S tier on their own, but together they're gonna be really good. Since I guess we're not really ranking them together, I'm gonna put Smeargle in B, and I put Muck in C. Muck only fits on a team with Smeargle. Smeargle can play a little bit by itself. So together they are S tier, but we're not ranking them by duos or ranking Pokemon individually. I wonder if that's fair to do that because we're playing VGC, right? So everything is gonna have a partner always. For sake of this list, I want to leave them right here because I really don't want to place them in S tier, but we'll put them there. Weezing is gonna be B for me. It's a Pokemon that plays its role. Its role is to get rid of abilities. It does good at that. It just doesn't have a lot of good partners right now. Its best partners are like Incinerar with Ability Shield and like Fluttermane Choice Specs that really doesn't need its ability that often. But sometimes even Fluttermane wants to use his ability, right? So Weezing can just be really crippling to your own team, and that makes it a little bit hard to use sometimes. Of course, Regigigas is a partner for it, but even Regigigas is not that good right now. I don't even know if Regigigas is on this list. Yeah, this list is missing a couple mons from the format. I don't know what their rating was. I guess they might have took like the top 100 or something like that Pokemon in the format, but we'll keep moving on. Galarian Weezing, I think it's a D tier. If you're gonna use Weezing, use the poison. You have less weaknesses. You're only weak to ground and psychic. This Weezing is weak to steel. It's weak to ground. It's weak to it's neutral to poison. So now you're able to be hit by poison. Whereas this Weezing resists poison. The poison is a pretty strong stab that's in the format right now. and you really don't want to be able to just be out damaged by Lander's Eye like that. This Weezing can take like switch in on a Sludge Ball. We have Electabuzz. Electabuzz is I'm gonna say C tier, similar to Raichu. It fits on teams that really just need redirection, but already have like a fire type or a fairy type, and you don't want to use Clefairy, right? Magmar is gonna be up here with Clefairy. In my opinion, I think Magmar is better than Clefairy. The option to burn things with Flame Body and just the resistances that come with being a fire type, it just, to me, outclasses Clefairy just a little bit, right? I think Magmar, I actually might put Magmar A. Magmar is really good, right? If you put this on any team, it's going to do well as a redirector. I think it's really good. I think all three of them are good, but I think that Electabuzz really is only going to fit on a team that doesn't want to double up on fairies and fire types, right? Paldean and Tauros, I don't want to say it's an F Pokemon. It's not that good, but just use Incinerar if you want to use Intimidate users. Intimidate plus a water type is pretty good. They had like Fake Out or something, they'd be better, but not having Fake Out and also like being weak to fairies is not good for it. Gyarados, I think Gyarados is gonna be. I think Gyarados may be a little bit better than Hisuian Arcanine. They're right around the same thing. Of course, Incinerar outclasses both of them, but they're the next best Intimidators along with like Landers, right? Snorlax. Snorlax is going to be D tier. It's a setup mon, setup sweeper. There's just a plethora of other setup sweepers that can do better than this. You want to go with Belly Drum with this, but if you want to sweep with something, just use Swords Dance Ogerpon. Just use like Swords Dance, even Urshifu, Swords Dance, King Gambit, Dragon Dance, Roaring Moon, Godingo, and Nasty Plot. Just a bunch of better setup users than Snorlax. We're gonna put that in a D tier. Articuno, it only works on the snow teams. It's gonna be C tier for me. You gotta watch out for it though, because if you catch it on a team with Alola and Ninetales, it can be pretty annoying for you. Galarian Articuno, I want to say it's C tier too. It only fits on teams that just need the Intimidator. I mean the Defiant user, and you really just can't find the room to fit one of like Annihilate or King Gambit on your team, and you want to just have that competitive ability. I think Empoleon may be better, but you do have Trick Room and Tailwind, so for that I'll put it in the B. Nah, I think it's a C tier mon. It's so weak into like a lot of things in the format. It's just not that good to me. I think Zapdos is highly underrated. I think it's a B tier mon. Being only weak, I mean your weaknesses are Ice, Rock, right? Ice and Rock, and I believe that's it, right? Flying is also weak to Electric, but because you're part Electric, that becomes a neutral hit, and Electric is weak to ground, and you're immune to that, right? So like only being weak to like Ice and Rock is, in my opinion, is really good defensive. You know, if you just add like a Rocky Helmet to this with Tailwind, Bulky Tailwind, a Citrus Berry, and like a Terra into like Steel to resist the Rock and Ice moves, then like Zapdos, in my opinion, is just really good. And it still has real good synergy with this, because Steel's weakness was one of his weaknesses ground, and you're already immune to that, right? So people are usually not gonna go for a ground read into you unless they can read you going for like a Rooster and you're gonna land. So Steel is pretty safe on that Pokemon. Galarian Zapdos, I think that is also a B tier. I think that both Zapdos are pretty good right now. This with a Choice Scarf and getting a +1 boost from Intimidate is really good. Moltres, this might be the first F tier. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put F tier. It's not good right now. Like being 4 times weak to Rock, middling speed, having Tailwind, but just not fast enough priority Tailwind, and then just getting knocked out is not good for this Moltres. It's one of the worst birds, and it's because it has like just a lot of common weaknesses. Being weak to Rock, being weak to Electric, being weak to water is just not good for it. This Moltres is a B tier for me. It's pretty reliable. It's gonna work on those teams that use like Sinistcha, Grimmsnarl, Spectrier, and just, you know, Fake Out, being able to set up nasty plots and being able to go for like those +3, +4 fire rafts. This Pokemon is always able to sweep if you just ignore it, right? It's a pretty good Pokemon. Dragonite, Right now it's going to be an A tier for me. It used to be S tier mon, but there's a lot of counterplay to it. Photograph being so common in the format kind of hurts Dragonite. And like I said, when you using Dragonite, you generally always have to burn your Terra. It's one of those Pokemon that just hogs the Terra on your team, and it can be kind of detrimental if your opponent already knows that you're gonna blow your Terra immediately. You don't have a lot of defensive synergy in the end game with your Terras, right? But it can like just blow the game open early on, and I think that's really valuable for it. Azumarill, also gonna be D tier for me. It's just a lot of better water types than it. Politoed, Pelipper is a lot better than Politoed right now, but Politoed is gonna fit on just rain teams. It has the niche of being able to go for Perish Song, but you much rather just use Pelipper right now, right? Jump Bluff, it's gonna be a B tier for me. It plays its role well, just like Venusaur. Very similar, being a chlorophyll abuser, where you go for those sleep powders and the encores and things like that. It can be pretty good next to Torkoal. It's not that great, but it does play its role pretty well. Murkrow, it's gonna be D tier for me. Tornadus and Whimsicott exist. Just use them. Murkrow does get Quash and Haze, but there's not really that many Dondozo running around for you to really want to use Haze. If Dondozo's the best Pokemon in the format, then Murkrow stocks rise. But other than that, it's not really that good. Slowbro, D tier. Slowking, sorry. Galarian Slowking, also D tier. I think Slowbro is just better than them. They really can't. I guess you can use Snowscape with this to set up the snow. I put it in D tier. This one is pretty bad though. Scizor. I want to say it's niche. Its niche is that it one-shots Flutter Mane, right? Threatens Flutter Mane with priority, forces it to switch Terror or Protect, which is pretty valuable. Kingdra, there's a plethora of better rain type users using the rain. Even though rain doesn't have a lot of Swift Swim users right now, there's a lot of Pokemon that abuse the rain, like Ogerpon and Urshifu, that aren't Swift Swim users that just function pretty much better in the rain. So Kingdra's gonna go C tier for me. Porygon 2. This is an A tier Pokemon. This Pokemon, people were slept on in the beginning of the format, and it's starting to show its face. It has this really fun core where it uses Incinerar, Tinglu, and Amoonguss, and that core is just really hard to break. And it centers around Porygon being one of the more unique picks of that core of 4. Hitmontop, same with Murkrow's D tier. Just use Gyarados, Arcanine, or Incinerar. Just a lot better. Raikou, I want to say D tier. Just use Raging Bolt. There's not really any traits that this has. It gets screens, but that's not really that good. Entei is going to be an A tier mon for me. Same with Dragonite. It might be a little bit better than Dragonite because of the typing, but it's really good. Sacred Fire next to Chien-Pao is really hard to switch into. It's a really powerful Pokemon. I'm really impressed with how good Entei is in this format. Suicune, it's gonna be a B tier Pokemon for me. I think it's at the top of B tier. This combo with a Fire Water Grass core and then Urshifu Dark seems like a really consistent core for me, and I'm interested in trying it out. Also, I have a team that's coming out that's gonna be built around it. Tyranitar, it's always gonna be, in my opinion, it's always gonna be B tier. It's a B tier mon. Sand is really good for breaking sashes. Terra is really good on Tyranitar, and just being able to enable things in the sand as well as chip things down, be relatively bulky to special attackers. Tyranitar is always going to be a B tier for me. Just you can't put it any lower than that or any higher than that. Swampert, it's going to be a D tier. Just use Gastrodon. And Swampert, if they gave Swampert a new ability that it can actually use a lot better, something like maybe Intimidate, I think the stocks for it will rise, and it might be able to compete with Gastrodon, but it's just not that good for me. Ludicolo only fits on rain teams. There's a plethora of rain Pokemon that are better. This Pokemon, so it's got a new ability, the Wind Rider, which makes it a little bit better, but it only fits on Tornadus, Tailwind spam teams, and even though on those teams it's not really that good, so we'll put it in C tier. Pelipper is going to be a B tier for me. Plays his role well as being a good Pokemon on rain teams, enabling things like Archaludon, enabling Urshifu, enabling Water Ogerpon. It's really good, and it's just the flying coverage that it gets is just really powerful into the format. Breloom, D tier, just use Amoonguss. Slaking, D tier, just use Regigigas. Hariyama also, it's gonna be C tier for me. I don't think it's a D tier, even though Iron Hands is better than it. Hariyama can play a different role because Iron Hands fits on teams that have a Trick Room option or just helping you against Trick Room teams. Hariyama likes to go on hard Trick Room teams, and like having Bullet Punch and Wide Guard just give it, like, makes it play just completely different from our Iron Hands likes to play. Sableye, I cannot stand this Pokemon, man. It's a C tier. It fits on teams that just want to be annoying and just surprise you with Sableye tricks, but it's not a D tier Pokemon because it can single-handedly win you games. Torkoal is going to be a B tier for me. Same as Pelipper. It plays this role really well, and it's, in my opinion, still the best Sunsetter that doesn't use Prankster, right? In my opinion. Melodic, this thing has fell off a cliff. It's a D tier for me. Is Melodic a D tier? I mean, competitive is really good. I want to say it's probably right there with Articuno, where it fits on teams that just need a competitive user, right? Dusclops, underrated. I think it plays its role well as being like a bulky Trick Room setter. It's not as good as Porygon, Cresselia, or Farigiraf, but being immune to Fake Out is just really good for it. The Ghost typing and like just being able to tear into Dark to get around Taunt is just really good for Dusclops. It's just very weak to Flutter Mane, so that's why it doesn't see more usage. Salamence is a really good Intimidator. I think it is up there with Gyarados and Arcanine, and I would argue that it's better than those two, in my opinion. But they're all right there in that same category as like really good Intimidators. Metagross, underrated. I think it's a B tier mon. It's right there with like Moltres. Like, you get this thing next to Chien-Pao, and it's really good. It does what Scizor wants to do, but better, like being able to threaten Flutter Mane immediately. And just like having like the Steel type and Psychic, like you 4 times resist side spam, is just really good for Metagross with an Assault Vest. Latias, also B tier. Good Tailwind setter, Rocky Helmet user, underrated mon. Latias, offensive dragon that can, with a Life Orb, this thing can really one-shot a lot of Pokemon. And I want to say it's the top of C tier. It fits on teams that really, are able to sweep under like Tailwind. And it's very surprising how much damage this thing can output, but more people don't use it. Infernape, my favorite Pokemon. Can't rank in anything less than a B, because just for it being my favorite Pokemon, I'm going to put it in B tier. But Infernape is, what it does is it's a fast fake out user, hard-hitting fire type attacker. It can be special or physical. Does about the same amount of damage on each side, and it is really decent next to Chien-Pao, as I showcased when I hit number 1 with it. So it's a really fun Pokemon. Empoleon, I think it's a lot better than Melodic. I'm going to put it in B tier. It does play its role well as being Intimidate, Deterrent, as well as something with Terror, like tearing into Fairy is really valuable for it. And this with Terra Blast, when you get to +1 with a Life Orb, it's going to be doing a lot of damage, and you can play it on the Trick Room. It's really good in my opinion. Staraptor, another Intimidate user. It is not as good as these two. I'm going to put it on maybe Hitmontop level. It's right. Hitmontop might be a little bit better. All right. Gastrodon. Let's see. Where do we put Gastrodon? I think Gastrodon is a B tier. Also underrated mon. I think that when Kyogre comes back, we're gonna see Gastrodon go into. I'm not sure that popped up. We're gonna see Gastrodon go into maybe an A tier mon, just because it does so well into Kyogre. Also, things like Walking Wake is going to be really common in the format. It's going to be good into that, right? Gastrodon stocks are going to rise when the restricted format comes out, but right now it really only like does well against like Urshifu, but even Urshifu you still hit it with a close combat. And Urshifu Water is also not that common in the format as far as being like one of the top tier mons. Urshifu's kind of fell off a little bit, the water one. All right, so we got Garchomp. I hate to put Garchomp in D. Now let's be honest. Garchomp, I think it's right there with Latios. It's the same thing, but physical attacker. It can do a lot of damage, but it's so prone to intimidate. You gotta have a clear amulet, right? And even with clear amulet, like it's just too slow to set up. Intimidate really just wrecks Garchomp. I think that if the power level is a bit lower, Garchomp can really thrive. But in this format, right, it's not the format for it. I think it's a D tier, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't see what it doesn't fit on one type of team. It's one of those Pokemon that you just throw on a team, but it's so many dragons that do its job better, right? I think it's a D tier, man. C tier is gonna be, this is Hard Trick Room Sweeper. Has really good ability where it can like use Terra to take less damage from super effective attacks. It's a C tier Pokemon, bro. Mamoswine, cool Pokemon. I'm building a team around Mamoswine as well, so look out for that. Mamoswine, in my opinion, is gonna be also a C tier. It fits on teams that really want to play in snow. Also, like this with a Focus Sash and Ice Shard is just really good for it. I think it's still a decent Pokemon, and it still does a lot of damage. The ground coverage is welcome. It can one-shot Incinerar, and it doesn't get intimidated because of Oblivious. So it's a pretty cool Pokemon. If anything, I kind of want to put it in. Nah, I'm gonna leave it in C tier until I actually play with it in game. Porygon Z. I built a team around this. If you want to see how well it did, please tune into the video. Like, I think third to last video I posted on my channel. I got 2 videos with this Pokemon. This Pokemon is actually really good, and it just does so much damage. Don't underestimate how much damage it's able to put out. I'm gonna put it up there with like, I think right up there with like Metagross and them. It does a lot of damage. This, once it gets behind a substitute and you have to double into it, it's just really valuable, especially if you have good speed control. Gallade. This Pokemon, when I've been playing on Showdown Best of 3s, it keep running into it and it keeps giving me trouble on the hard Trick Room teams. Like, I don't know why it does so well with a clear amulet, but it's able to like just dish out a bunch of damage and threaten Trick Room, and also protect the Trick Room user by being able to threaten damage to one of the other mons that can one shot your Trick Room user, right? And in my opinion, I think that it's a B tier mon. It's underrated. Route D tier. There's just a plethora of better water and fire type attackers, and like I said, these Pokemon right here are, in my opinion, they're really good in other formats. Like almost like all of these are good in like other formats, but this is not the format for them, right? Even Arcanine, like when you look at these Pokemon, like they're genuinely good in the game, but the power level is just too high that it's not the time for them right now, right? Heatran also pretty much fell off a cliff, but it's still a good Pokemon. I think it's still a B tier mon. The resistances that it offers, being immune to poison, being immune to fire, is just really good in my opinion. And it's so easy with Terra to like really get around the water and ground, like 4 times weaknesses. So it's a good Pokemon. Cresselia, also a B tier. It's one of the best Trick Room setters. It's gonna play that role really well, but I do think that its best partners right now is gonna be something like a Registeel, and I think Porygon and Fergraph are a little bit better than it right now. Superior. This is a fan favorite. People love this Pokemon. I was gonna build a team around it, but I still haven't gotten around to using it. But I do think that it can be okay. I'm gonna say that it's a C tier for right now, right? It's gonna fit on a team like similar to Mamoswine that can support it. You have to build around this Pokemon, and that's gonna be the only team that works for it. But if you do build around it, I think that it can surprise your opponent and like be able to sweep in. Like its damage output, like once it gets to like +4, +6 with Leaf Storm, like a lot of things can't switch into it, and your opponent might not expect like the damage output from it, even though it knows that it's gonna go for like Leaf Storms. Escadrille, C tier, fits on sand teams. It's a good Pokemon for those sand teams. Threatens Flutter Mane, but Flutter Mane, let's be real, it's not gonna just allow you to just click Iron Head into a turn 1, right? It's always gonna be something like that it's gonna do to play around that. Whimsicott, this is an A tier Pokemon. I'm not sure why it's not seeing more usage, but as the series goes on, I do think that, or the regulation, I think that more people are gonna pick up on how good Encore is on this Pokemon, as well as like Tailwind with a Focus Sash. And I think that one thing keeps it back is that Chien-Pao is so good right now, Urshifu Dark are so good right now, and they both take up Sash. And Whimsicott best item is Sash, and when you're not using Sash, Whimsicott is just a little bit worse. And some of the best Pokemon in the format right now are taking up that Sash, so that might be why you're not seeing more usage from it. And Tornadus doesn't necessarily need Sash, So that's why Tornadus seems a bit better right now. Lilligant, it's gonna be C tier for me. Only fits on Sun teams, but this Lilligant is actually a B tier. Even though it only works on Sun teams, the offensive pressure from like fighting as well as sleep powder and grass type damage is just really good in my opinion. It's a really good Pokemon, and it's very threatening. Scrafty, it's gonna be an F tier for me. I'm sorry. It does get Intimidate, Fake Out, but it's not even as good as like these two in my opinion. Gothitelle, it's gonna be a C tier for me. Gothitelle is really good with Fake Out and Trapping, but it's only gonna fit on the teams that really play Perish. But Urshifu really hurts Perish because Perish likes to protect and go for like really good like reads to stall out and make all your Pokemon fate from Parasong, and Urshifu just says no to Parasong, right? So I think if Urshifu wasn't in the format, Gothitelle would probably be like a B or A tier Pokemon, but since Urshifu's here, it's gonna be a C tier. And there's just like Godingo being so common and being able to switch out, Fluttermane can switch out. There's a lot of good ghost types that aren't trapped by your shadow tag. Ranunculus, it's gonna be an F tier Pokemon for me. It sets up Trick Room, but it just gets one shot by Fluttermane before it can do anything. And terrestrializing this is so obvious that I feel like Fluttermane can still just go for like a Moonblast Fairy Terra plus a double up from his teammate. It's gonna remove Ranunculus. It's not that good. Amoonguss gonna be our first S tier Pokemon. Being able to Spore you, redirect, it's just, we already know what Amoonguss is gonna do. At the beginning of the format, so Amoonguss goes to like an A tier, and then as the format starts to pick up and people start to, you know, balance out, things get bulkier. When Pokemon get bulky, Amoonguss is at its best because it likes to pollen puff its teammates and spore and allow things to just stick around and switch out, right? Amoonguss is a definite S tier Pokemon. I don't think there's any argument about that. Hydreigon, it's crazy how good this Pokemon was in the beginning of the format, but it's also fallen off a cliff. It's gonna be a D tier for me. Volcarona, it's a C tier, B tier for me. This Pokemon, if it gets quivered and set up, it's gonna sweep you, right? It can be threatening next to Redirection, but there's just so many good fire types in the format right now that it's hard to like put it above any of these. But Volcarona is a B tier Pokemon. Terrakion only fits on teams that have Whimsicott and going for the Whimsicott strategy. It actually is hard to deal with. I'm shocked I don't see it more on the format, but Redirection really hurts this strategy and kind of makes it almost pretty much useless. Tornadus, he's going to also be an S tier for us. He is a bit better than Whimsicott right now due to the fact that it doesn't need Sash and it can set up all four weathers, right? Whimsicott mostly is doing sun, while Tornadus can be rain, sunny day, sandstorm, or snowskate, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Thundurus, underrated. It's gonna be a B tier for me. Its role is that it can set up electric terrain to help with the Quark Drive Pokemon, as well as set up rain for Ogerpon or any like Swift sweepers. And also Eerie Impulse is very annoying for like a lot of the special attackers in the format. It's pretty good in my opinion. This Thundurus, it's gonna be a C tier. It only fits on rain teams that can take advantage of like. It's a pretty strong Pokemon though. It's right there with Excadrill, but the Wimbo Storm in the rain with Choice Specs does a lot of damage, but it just needs a lot of support in order to get that off. This Landorus, A tier Pokemon, we already know it's made a comeback. It's proven that it's the better Landorus right now, but I do think as the restricted format comes out and Zacian comes and is able to just remove you with a one-hit KO, and you have to invest so much bulk to where it's not really worth it. I do think that it's gonna fall down and Landorus is gonna be a little bit better. But this Landorus right now is not as good, but I still think that this Landorus is a better Intimidate user than these three. But it's just not seeing the usage that it wants right now. Talonflame is D tier. Just use any other Tail 1 user. It's not that good right now. Hisuian Gudra, it's a B tier mon. It can sweep you if you allow it to get set up, and it can't be crit, so it can be scary, but it does have a lot of counterplay. Sylveon, it's gonna be D tier for me right now. Just use Fluttermane. Even Enamorous is good fairy damage. Sylveon used to be like maybe the second best special sweeper after Fluttermane, but now we have Primarina and Hatterene, which are just better than Sylveon in my opinion at what they want to do. Rangaroo, it's gonna be C tier, hard Trick Room of course. It can sweep you if it gets on those teams. Como, I think Como is a high B tier. It fits on the teams that really can take advantage of your opponent's lack of damage with special attackers, and if they like very physical oriented, then this Pokemon can shine on those. Lycanroc, just same as Excadrill, fits on the Sand team. Fast flinches are going to be very hard to deal with, but it does have a lot of counterplay. Now we have Incinerar. Incinerar is going to be S tier. It's probably the best Pokemon in the format. Incinerar is so good, man. It's just like, even people thought that it fell off. Even I thought that Entei was better than it. As the format goes on, like, Incinerar is just such a good Pokemon. Like, getting Helping Hand, Parting Shot now, Knock Off, Flare Blitz, Fake Out, U-Turn. It gets almost all the perfect support moves that it's so hard to just like KO in one hit. And it's just, in my opinion, like, people think that Incinerar is not healthy for the game, but I do think Incinerar is healthy for the game, because when we get into a restricted format, like, Incinerar's offense and its presence is very appreciated and helping contain some of the overpowered restricted mons, right? And I think it keeps the OP mons in check, in my opinion. I think it's very good. Primarina is going to be a B tier for me. It's a really good Pokemon. It can really do a lot of damage on the Trick Room. It's really good with an Assault Vest, and it hits really hard with like Hyper Voice and Moonblast. It's just a really good Pokemon. Araquanid, I think it's going to be C tier. It fits on those hard Trick Room teams. It can sweep you if it gets on the Trick Room in the rain, but it does take a lot of setup to get there. Corviknight, underrated. It's going to be a B tier for me. Good iron defense, body press Pokemon, but also gets Tailwind. Is really good with a Rocky Helmet. Can't be intimidated. It's right there with like Volcarona. If this thing gets set up, like, it can really deal a lot of damage to your team. Indeedee going to be an A tier Pokemon for me. Now, Indeedee is an A tier support mon. That's because Follow Me plus Psychic Terrain, redirection, and stopping priority is just so good. Removing other terrain like Rillaboom's terrain or Electric terrain or even Misty terrain, once Misty terrain becomes more prominent, Indeedee is just really good to me. Setting that terrain, also gets Fake Out if you want to be crazy and use Fake Out. Going for Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, also using a Rocky Helmet is just, Indeedee is such a good redirection and protection Pokemon. In my opinion, it might be better than Magmar at redirection, and it's so good at what it does. Berserker, I made a video of Berserker. Berserker's an F tier Pokemon. No, it's not good at all. It gets wiped so easily. Rillaboom, S tier Pokemon. Better than Amoonguss in my opinion. Fake Out plus Grassy Glide and Wood Hammer. Like, this Pokemon does so much damage. Doesn't really care about Intimidate sometimes because it likes to come in and out so you can get more Fake Outs. So Intimidate doesn't hurt it as much unless it's like an end game where it can't really switch out anymore. Grimmsnarl, underrated, not used as much. I think Grimmsnarl is an A tier Pokemon. It's the best screens Pokemon. It gets Fake Out, Parting Shot, Thunder Wave, Scary Face. It gets a whole kit of support, different support moves. It's just not seeing more play. But like I said, these Pokemon, when restricted formats come out, support Pokemon become a lot more important. And like things like Magmar, Grimmsnarl, things like Gastrodon, Lilligant, like all these support mons that have like a niche, they're gonna be just a lot better when the restricted mons come. Even Raichu, like being able to like stop Zekrom, protect Kyogre from electric moves, like they're gonna be a lot better when restricted formats come. And I think even Smeargle may rise up a little bit when the restricted format comes. Hatterene, it's gonna be a B tier. Plays his role as being a Trick Room sweeper, Trick Room setter really well. It's always going to be good at that. Now that they got Expanding Force back, it's really still good in my opinion. Dragapult, C tier. I think Dragapult's a B tier actually. Dragapult, in my opinion, is kind of like Gallade, where it surprisingly does a lot of damage if it goes unchecked, and it can't be intimidated, right? And it's very fast. It's the fastest thing outside of Regieleki. And it can just remove a lot of Pokemon. You're forced to like run a Booster Energy or set up Tailwind to outspeed it before it can deal a lot of damage. Urshifu Dark. Urshifu Dark is going to be another S tier for us. I don't think it's as good as Rillaboom and Incinerar, but it is right there. And it's like I told you, it's one of those ones that uses that Focus Sash And it's one of the reasons why Focus Sash Whimsicott doesn't see more plays, because it's one of the Focus Sash users that takes up that slot. Water Urshifu, still an A tier Pokemon. I do think it's better than Landorus, but it has come down from an S tier because Urshifu Dark is just better right now. And with Ogerpon being so prominent in the format, kind of knocked down this Pokemon a few notches. Glacier fits on those Trick Room teams. If this thing does get set up, it can clean through your team, but with a clear amulet and like Sword Stands, but it just takes a lot of support. Spectrier, same thing. I think it's C tier. I actually think Spectrier might be a B tier because you can play an offensive set like next to something like Clefairy, set up Nasty Plot, or you can play the Will-O-Wisp and Snarl set and just be really disruptive. And it pairs really good with Moltres and protecting Moltres and making Moltres more bulky with Snarl and Will-O-Wisp. It does get outsped by Fluttermane, but a good Terror on this Pokemon is a lot better than what it looks. Regieleki, also underrated, just needs a little bit more help in this generation. It can't really solo through your team like it could with Dynamax, but in my opinion, it's still a good Pokemon. I'm gonna put it right up there with around like Gastrodon. It's still a really good Pokemon, and when the restricted format comes, Scarf Regieleki with support Electroweb is going to be very valuable for helping deal with Zacian and Calyrex Shadow. Regidrago, B tier, plays his role well as being a special attacking sweeper. You let it get going and you have a good protection around it, it's going to always do its job pretty well. Cleavor is going to be D tier. Scarf Pokemon with rock type damage. Just use Hisuian Arcanine. You want to use Sharpness, just use Gallade, right? Galade's just better. It's a D tier Pokemon. It is cool, but the power level is too high for it right now for it to be good. Sneasler, Unburden. It's pretty cool. It's only going to fit on teams that use Indeedee and is able to sweep with the Unburden or like a Rillaboom with Grassy Seed or Psychic Seed. Other than that, it does get threatened by Intimidate. Enamorus is going to be C tier. Actually, this Enamorus is D tier. Just use Fluttermane, right? Fluttermane, special attacking, base 135 special attack. Fluttermane also has base 135 speed. Just use Flutter, right? This Enamorus, now this one fits on Trick Room teams. I'm gonna put it right next to Enamorus because if it does get on the Trick Room, it's immune to Amoonguss. It can just really sweep your team. Basculegion fits on rain teams. It's a good rain sweeper, but it's not the best because it just dies to like Sucker Punch and Sucker Punch and Thunderclap from Raging Bolt. Ursaluna, it's gonna be a B tier. It plays its role as a Trick Room sweeper. I'm gonna put it like right there next to Lilligant. It goes really well on those Sun teams, and it plays really good alongside things that can set up Trick Room pretty easily and allow it to sweep. Blood Moon Ursaluna is gonna be a S tier Pokemon for me. This Pokemon next to Farigiraf under Trick Room or even on Tailwind, it's hard to knock out because of its natural bulk, and it just does so much freaking damage with like Normater, Hyper Voice, or Blood Moon. It's just a very hard Pokemon to switch in on, and Ghost types aren't safe. You can only use Steel types, and it has Earth power to hit Steel types. It literally has nothing that can stop its offensive coverage, right? It's just really good in my opinion. Skeledirge is falling off a cliff. It's a D tier Pokemon for me right now. It does get Unaware, but it's not really useful right now. Farigiraf, another S tier Pokemon. It's going to be the best Trick Room setter in the format. Armatel blocking priority. Trick Room stopping Tailwind teams. Imprison Trick Room stopping Trick Room teams. Like, this Pokemon is just one of the best support Pokemon ever created, and it helps you deal with all the forms of speed control that are in the format right now, except maybe Electroweb and like Icy Wind. But you have like this next to like a King Gambit helps you deal with like stuff like that. Dondozo, still gonna be a B tier Pokemon for me. I think it's at the top of B. If you don't have a check for this Pokemon, then it and Tassagiri are just gonna really sweep you, right? You still have to have checks for them. Similar to like Smeargle and Muck, you have to have a check for them. But these two are actually fused together to make one Pokemon, so I don't need to rank them separately because they do become one Pokemon when they on the field together. And Muck, where's Muck? Where did I put Muck? Muck and Smeargle do not become one Pokemon when they're on the field together, but it does give Smeargle's ability, but it gets any ability when a Pokemon next to it faints. But like I said, these two actually play as one Pokemon, so I'm gonna rank them in the B. Palafin is falling off a cliff. I'm gonna say it's D tier, man, and I hate to do it, but its ability, like, you have to switch it out. Urshifu being so good, I feel like if Urshifu wasn't in the format right now, Palafin would be one of the best water types. Ogerpon does hard check it, and Palafin really likes to just run like Wave Crash, Jet Punch, plus like Haze or like Close Combat. But Water Ogerpon just really does it in and makes it really hard for this Pokemon to succeed. The only check that it really had before Water Ogerpon and Urshifu in the format was Gastrodon, right? And like a random Storm Drain Tatsugiri. This Pokemon is underrated in my opinion. It does have its niche. It fits on teams that need poison type and ground type immunities, and just being able to switch in those and like set up like a substitute switch out is just really good in my opinion. Mousehold, pretty good redirection user. Don't underestimate the population bomb set. I still think it's a B tier mon, but I think it's a low tier B mon because there are a lot of redirection users that are good. But Mousehold with the Friend Guard and also the offense makes it play a little bit differently from Clefairy. I actually think it's right there with Clefairy. It's about the same. Excalibur, B tier, bulky dragon ice type, similar to Moltres. If it gets set up with a loaded dice, Scale Shot, or Swords Dance, it can be very threatening. Garganacl, it's really, the power level is really too high for it. This Pokemon was so good. It won the first regional. And it was so good early on in the format, but I just feel like the power level is a bit too high for it. So I kind of want to put it in D tier along with Palafin right now. Glimmora, very powerful Pokemon. I think it's good on every team. And every time I see it, like threatening with Power Herd, Meteor Beam, and being able to set up poison to break sashes, it literally fits on every team except teams that really want to utilize like Amoonguss to Spore. But it's pretty much good on all other teams that don't really need to use status conditions, right? What's this Pokemon's name? What's his name? Brambleghast. Brambleghast, I think it's C tier. It only fits on Tailwind teams. I do think it's better than Shiftry because of the immunities and resistances that it has. But even still, it's not that good. But it's going to be C tier for me. Gholdengo's also going to still be an A tier mon. Fits on pretty much every team. Like, just being able to 100% wall Amoonguss. Just being one of your Amoonguss answers is just really good for it. Being immune to Fake Out. Incinerar we thought was going to slow this Pokemon down. But as long as you have good teammates that support Gholdengo to deal with Incinerar, Gholdengo can really shine with like good speed control and good like redirection support. Walking Wake. Very underrated, powerful mon. I think it's a B tier right now. Like right there with Venusaur. It might be a little bit better. Yeah, I think it's still better than Suicune. Once restricted Pokemon come back and it gets access to Koraidon and Groudon, I'm telling you, this Pokemon is going to be an S tier Pokemon. Just mark my words. Screamtail, you have to have checks for this Pokemon. It's a B tier. It's going to play its role of disrupting your opponents pretty well, similar to like Smeargle. It does its job really well, and you have to know how to play against it, or else you just lose to it. Fluttermane, let's just say it, Fluttermane is still the best Pokemon in the format. Base 135 special attack, 135 speed, being ghost type, perfect coverage, being immune to Fake Out, love tearing into your own type to deal more damage. Fairy can hit everything. It has nothing that is immune to Fairy type damage. It's just such a good Pokemon, very fast. Roaring Moon, also underrated Pokemon. It's a B tier for me. I think it's right up there with Dondozo and Walking Wake. It is a really good Pokemon. I may put it over Walking Wake because it can take better advantage of the booster energy with Tailwind. Iron Hands, also still slept on. Good Fake Out user. Good against Trickle Mons. It used to be an S tier mon, but I think now it's falling down to a B tier mon. But it's still a really good Pokemon. And Incinerar might be the better Fake Out user, but Iron Hands still has a place in this format. And I think as we get into the restricted format, you're going to be able to see Iron Hands because it can deal with a lot of, with its bulk, it can deal with a lot of the powerful restricted Pokemon. Like it could take a a water spout from Kyogre and be able to one-shot it back with a wild charge, which is pretty cool. Iron Bundle, also something that we're gonna see as restricted formats coming. Like I say, I think our restricted format is gonna be something that we have coming next. So right now, these Pokemon are ranked a little bit lower than what I think they will rise up in another format. But Iron Bundle is still really good, underrated in my opinion. And this format, being able to go for Icy Wind, Freeze Dry, just making your Pokemon move first before it, I think it's just as good as Iron Heads. It's still a good Pokemon in this format. Ting Lu, I'm gonna say it's an A tier mon right now. It has made a comeback as one of the ruins, and it's really good on that core with Porygon, Incinerar, and Amoonguss, and it's able to like really reduce the damage of special type attacks. Hard walls, Godango, just being able to just snarl it and remove it with a Stumpy Tantrum is just really good in my opinion. It's also one of the only checks to help you deal with Blood Moon Ursaluna in the Trick Room, because it underspeeds it and it can snarl it before you can attack, which is really good for Ting-Lu. Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao, in my opinion, is probably the third best Pokemon in the format, right after Incineroar and Flutter Mane. Like, it's so good. Another user of Focus Sash, Ice type coverage, being super fast, making things around you weaker to physical attacks. It's just very good in this Pokemon. This Pokemon is just so good right now. So good. Wo-Chien, I'm sorry, but it's a D tier Pokemon. Plethora of other grass types, Pollen Puff being a grass type user. Use Sinistcha, use Rillaboom, use Amoonguss. Even Hydrapple might be just as good as this Pokemon, right? And Hydrapple is right there, but Hydrapple, Wo-Chien is just, I feel like they didn't give it enough tools to deal with the other, to keep up with the other restricteds. I think they should have gave it just a bit more. It really doesn't need that special attack that it has, and I feel like they could invest more into like HP or bulk and drop some of the speed just a little bit more, because it doesn't really need that, and it can just be a bit bulkier. But the being 4 times weak to bug really hurts it. Chi-Yu, in my opinion, is still an A tier Pokemon. I think it's right there with Landorus. If you don't have a proper check for this thing, it can sweep you. It's still a good Pokemon in this format. Tinkaton has the fun niche of being able to fake out through Frigoraph. I think it's a C tier Pokemon because it only fits on teams that really need to get fake out off, right? Armarouge. I think it's a B tier Pokemon. It plays its role well as being like a trick room sweeper and setter. I think it's similar to like Hatterene in that aspect, but it's a little bit better than Hatterene, so I'm gonna put it like right here. King Gambit, still an A tier Pokemon. That's the best Defiant user, still better than Annihilate in my opinion. But Annihilate doesn't have the threat of being one shot immediately by a specific type. Like King Gambit can be removed by a fighting type attack, but fighting type coverage is usually kind of obvious, and Terrestrialization really helps this Pokemon a lot. But it is an A tier Pokemon in my opinion. There's Annihilate, but Annihilate in my opinion is underrated. It's not as good as King Gambit, but it's still a really good Pokemon. Beat up Annihilate is probably dead now, but I do think that Annihilate plus Raging Bolt is a really good strategy, and it should be just explored a little bit more. With Incinerar being so prominent and being able to threaten Incinerar with a one-hit KO is just really good in my opinion. So I used Annihilate at the beginning of Regulation F, and I'm going to also give it another try. It's just Flutter Mane is so good right now, but you have to have Terrestrialization on this. And once you find the perfect Terra that supports your team, this Pokemon is really good. Alright, next we have Ogerpon Grass, also a B tier mon. And I think that Defiant also helps it. I think that it does Defiant a little bit better than Annihilate, plus the speed boost. But it is not as good as King Gambit, because King Gambit has the Sucker Punch priority. While you do get Quick Attack, it's just not as strong, right? But this Ogerpon is still really good. Water Ogerpon is going to be S tier. I think it's right up there with, I think it's better than Amoonguss in my opinion. It might be better than Frigoraph too. It's a really good Pokemon. It pairs really well with Incineroar and Flutter Mane. It's just a really good help to round out your Firewater Grass core. And being able to redirect plus be offensive is something completely different from how Amoonguss plays. Fire Ogerpon is going to be an A tier Pokemon for me. I think it's right up there with Urshifu Water and Chi-Yu. We have so many good fire types in this generation right now, as well as grass types. And it's just a crowded scene for it, right? And I think that Swords Dance is very threatening with Ivy Cudgel plus Terra, and this thing can really be really scary in the right situations. Rock Ogerpon is probably on the lowest of them. I still don't think it's a C tier mon. I think it's a B tier. It's a really good redirector. It does help with like hard Trick Room. It works really well with Frigoraph. You can't fake out and you can't one-hit KO it because it has sturdy built in, so it's pretty much like a focus sash that it has automatically. It's still a good Pokemon opinion. I'm gonna put it B tier. Hydrapos D tier, but it is better than Wo-Chien, right? Because it gets Yawn, and I think that allows it to be a little bit better because it can put things to sleep. Okidogi, the best of the little trio of poison Pokemon. I think it's a B tier mon. I think it's right there with Annihilate. Bulk up plus getting a +1 boost from Intimidate is really good in my opinion, and also being able to threaten Incinerar with a 1 KO is pretty cool. Monkey Dory D tier. It's just really bad. Actually, Monkey Dory is an F tier. I'm not gonna lie to you. Monkey Dory is probably the strongest F tier Pokemon, right? And look at this 6. Like, you guys think you can win with these on your team? I don't think you could. Pheasantipity, pretty cool in my opinion. Let's see. It's a Tailwind user. I think it's decent. I think it's not as good as, I think it's a C tier. I think it's high C tier. But it fits on teams that need Tailwind plus Icy Wind combo, and also like being able to poison you by going for like Icy Wind, and also with Dazzling Gleam, like it has its own niche, right? And it's a pretty cool Pokemon. I think that if these Pokemon are released when the power level is really low, they're going to be very dominant in the format. This like Okidogi, this Pheasantipity, and even Monkey Dory can be better in like another format. Gouging Fire. This Pokemon is an A tier Pokemon, right? Another really good fire type user. This Pokemon is very good at setting up physical attackers in order to enable them to deal big damage with Howl. And Burning Bulwark, being able to burn like physical attackers that target it, is just super valuable in my opinion. It's a really cool Pokemon. Like I said, I started off Regulation F using this with Annihilate, and I found like a lot of success early on with that duo. Raging Bolt, S tier Pokemon. It's one of the best Pokemon introduced right now. I think it might be better than the Urshifu Dark, honestly. It's so bulky and its stats are just crazy. Like Thunderclap, being able to hit things just like Sucker Punch. Thunderbolt, Electric Terror just does so much damage with a booster energy. And if you have like a Manic and use it in Sun, like this thing is one shot in everything. Iron Crown, it's gonna be, I think it's, I want to say, I think it's, is it an A tier? I think that this Pokemon can really hurt you. It's like the best Expanding Force user right now. I think it can really hurt you if you don't have good answers in the side spam, right? And I think that it is really good next to Indeedee, especially if you go like the special attacking booster energy nature. Then you're able to deal like a lot of damage, right? And it is a really good user of booster energy. Arm Boulder. Arm Boulder's a C tier mon. I think it's better than Terrakion, because Terrakion needs Whimsicott, whereas Arm Boulder is able to fit on teams that need an answer into things that like to protect. And also, I made a team built around it. It was really cool with coaching and being able to hit through protect with his signature move. It's not that bad, but like I said, I think the power level is just too high. But the type of Pokemon it is, with it being legendary status, I think it's always going to be in formats where the power level is too high, and I think that really is going to hold it back. Archaludon, Harleys is not even on this list. That's crazy. Or Virizion. But Archaludon is a really good B tier Pokemon for me. Similar to like Kommo-o, like once it gets going, it's very hard to remove with physical damage. And I also saw a set where it uses Snarl along with the Assault Vest in order to reduce the damage of special type attackers, and it becomes very threatening. Like this, if it has something that can heal it, like an Amoonguss or like a Sinister, it can be really, threatening. And last but not least, we have Sinister. Sinister's still good in this format. I think it's a B tier mon. Rage Powder, Trick Room with a Rocky Helmet, and Matcha Gotcha is still really threatening for this Pokemon, and it doesn't see a lot of play right now, but again, I think it's another Pokemon that can be better as the format goes on. Alright, but that's gonna be it for our list. We don't have any, we're missing a couple of mons, but we pretty much got the most relevant mons in the format. Let me know with a comment below if you guys like this type of list, and for fun, if you guys want to see me build a team around these 6, our worst 6, in the F tier and see if we can get a win on the ladder with them. Let me know in the comment below if you guys would be interested in seeing something like that. Since we do have a perfect 6 in the F tier, I'm gonna build a team around just these if you guys want me to, but I only do that if you want. So leave a comment below if you guys would be interested in seeing something like that, and I think it'll be just fun for content. But let me know in the comment if you guys like this list, if you like this type of content, if you like when I do these lists, because I kind of do want to do more ranking videos. I think they're pretty fun, and I think that they're very interactive, and I'm hoping that you guys interact in the comments, and we can start to talk about some of these. If you would move some up from A, if you would move some down a little bit, or if you think something may be ranked a little bit too low and you would raise it up. But that's gonna be it for this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. All right, deuces.